Welcome to Meet the Candidates, a forum for candidates for the November 8th general election for Anoka City Council. Thanks to the candidates, those who submitted questions, the facility managers, and the viewing audience for making this event possible. The forum is being recorded. Thank you, QCTV, for your video projection. And now the candidates as a group have a special announcement they would like to have.
Thank you very much. I'm Erik Skogquist, and we'll go through all the introductions here. But we just talked as a group and decided it was really important to acknowledge that Officer Erik Grubner had passed away yesterday on our force, and it's a very sad situation for him and his wife Holly and their kids. So we just wanted to send our condolences as a group before we got going and let them know that we have them in our thoughts and our prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Sandy Connor, and I will moderate this forum. This is Sue Durgans, who will assist in keeping things moving smoothly. We are members of the Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids Area League of Women Voters, the sponsor of this forum. I live in Blaine, so I can't vote for any of these candidates. All candidates for this race were invited to participate in the forum, and we are delighted that the candidates accepted. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose any political parties or candidates for office. I am sure all of these candidates care very much who you vote for, but the League does not. The League does hope that each of you will vote. The goal of our forums is to help citizens become informed voters. The candidates and the League are here to provide information. Welcome to Anoka City Council candidates Mark Freeburg, Jeff Lee, Sam Scott, and Erik Skogquist. In lieu of opening statements, we will begin with 2 questions which were provided to the candidates in advance. This will be followed by questions from the public which were submitted in advance. We will end with closing statements from each candidate. Candidates will take turns answering first. For the first 2 questions, answers are limited to 90 seconds. Candidate Freeburg, what was your motivation to run for this office, and what experience or knowledge would help you serve effectively?
Well, I've served for 24 years a couple of years ago, and when I retired from the city council, I was going to have a retirement party, and sure enough, COVID screwed it up, so I wanted to come back so I could retire again. Just kidding. No, I just feel like I have more to contribute to the city. I thoroughly enjoyed what I did in the past. I'm looking forward to working with the city again. It's a wonderful city. And it seems to be running on all 8 cylinders. Crime is under control. Festivals are a huge draw to people that come up from all around the state to come to Anoka. Retail space rent leases are about 100%. Entertainment district, as you've seen tonight when you came in tonight, is a huge success. And about 25 years ago, there wasn't a restaurant there or a chair on the sidewalk. So that's nice. The lower Rum River has been dredged so boats can travel upstream to the destination of downtown. My desire is to keep the status quo, keep Anoka healthy and functioning well. Do I got another 90 seconds for the second part?
Yes, later. Thank you. Candidate Scott.
Thank you again. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight. Good evening. My name is Sam Scott, and I'm asking for your vote for City Council. Over the last few years, we've seen a council that has voted to make chalking on our sidewalks illegal, to disband the Human Rights Commission, despite losing a discrimination lawsuit with steep financial penalties, that voted to change the heart of historic downtown flair by favoring a chain restaurant in a premier location over the local favorite, 10K Brewing, that cut thousands of dollars to community ed funding for our city's most needy, and a council that thinks it's a good idea to explore spending over $10 million to remake our municipal golf course when our local parks have broken water fountains, old and worn down playground equipment, and a parks budget that spreads itself so thin that these issues will only get worse. Anoka needs a change in leadership. I'm running to make chalking on sidewalk legal again, to prioritize public safety through fully funding our police, fire, parks and trails, roads, and other public infrastructure. I'll work to keep our property taxes reasonable as the city navigates global and local inflation, supply chain issues, and attracting enough employees to fulfill the city's responsibility to the public good. My background as a local business owner, finance professional, the Parks and Rec vice chair, combat veteran, and dedicated husband and father make me uniquely qualified to earn your vote for council. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to my fellow candidates and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this event on. My family moved to Anoka in 1978 when I was 2, and it's been home ever since. We are in every way imaginable invested in this city with businesses and homes and things that we do. I want to see it flourish. Anoka is a town unique in both history and geography. We have a one-of-a-kind downtown and amazing amenities, including 2 rivers, a beautiful golf course, parks, trails, and a civic pride that is second to none. Protecting this town and preparing it for the future is my motivation to run. I believe my experience working with developers around the Twin Cities gives me a unique perspective and would be a valuable addition to the council. I believe my experience will help the city bring development partners for some of our blighted areas. We can bring new business to the city that will provide services our residents need and deserve, and will provide employment opportunities to families throughout the area. More importantly than that, however, is that Anoka, like every city across America, is at an inflection point. In this country, we have a crisis, and that is the shortage of men and women who seek to serve in law enforcement. I saw it myself just 4 weeks ago when I did a ride-along with our police force on a Saturday shift between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. when the bars closed. Between law and order and chaos is the police. As we have seen in cities throughout the nation, crime is at an all-time high. This cannot be allowed to happen in Anoka. On council, I will place no higher priority than the safety and well-being of all our residents and our law enforcement officers. We deserve peace, tranquility, law, and order, and I will be a voice of support for the Anoka PD if elected to the council.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Thank you. Forums the league puts on like this really are essential to voters to understand who we are and why we're running. So I just want to say thank you to the league and please keep up the good work you've been doing. I've served on the council for 4 years. I'm a past park board member, but more important than that, I think, is just I'm a citizen that's been engaged in paying attention to the city of Anoka for many years, 20 plus years probably. Most citizens don't have time to get into the weeds of city government, but they want someone that they know, that they can trust to explain those issues and advocate for them and on their behalf. My motivation to run for the council this time is the same as it was 4 years ago when I ran. I think there are viewpoints on the council that should represent the citizens and that who they serve, and they should engage with the community to try to understand what they want in their city. I'm running again because I just don't think that works very well in the city of Anoka. I've been more than to one council meeting over the years where citizens speak up. The council mayor, they nod their head or they sit there quietly, then they proceed to vote against whatever the residents in the audience preferred. On the occasion where citizens do petition the city or call or email or force a council to vote and change their position, I've seen my colleagues get upset and publicly scold residents when they have questioning their vote on a particular topic. Personally, this blows my mind. Why an elected official would think, let alone say these things out loud. You, the citizens, choose us to represent you and not to replace you. I spend a lot of time listening and reaching out to folks, however they like to communicate, and to make that connection so that they have someone they can come to when they have an issue. I do my best to bring a perspective that is often missed, and there's a promise I make to you that I will continue to do that if elected for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Scott, what are your goals for Anoka's future?
Thank you. The city of Anoka has some amazing opportunities to propel the quality of life for our residents forward and to make the city an even better place to call home. First, I'm looking forward to positioning Anoka as a cultural hub for the area as we design and implement the state's first social district, This is a unique opportunity the city has to showcase its vibrant downtown businesses, amazing parks and trails, and create a space that residents can be proud of and want to be at. Second, I think Anoka needs to get its existing obligations in order before going down the wish list of a new multi-million-dollar golf course. My goal for the city here is to direct enough funding to make sure residents are safe, from making sure our police and fire have enough staff, equipment, and training to do their jobs professionally, to our Parks and Recreation Department, having enough staff to keep our playgrounds, pool, and trails in good repair and safe to use for our children. However, I'm a realist, and this goal needs to be balanced with the direction of the economy, where rampant inflation, labor shortages, coupled with ever-increasing interest rates, will present challenges to the community as to where we get the most for our tax dollars. Third, Anoka markets itself as a river town. It's one of the many benefits of living here. I think it's time to get the west side of the Rum River Trail System developed for our residents and guests to enjoy the river. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Yeah, this is very simple for me. I'd like Anoka to remain a safe city with a vibrant downtown and beautiful amenities. Anoka is lacking in areas that are critical to that vision, and I'd like to see them addressed. I kind of imagine it's sort of a village of Anoka feel, where we see the cobblestones and the flowers and the banners and things when you go onto Main Street. It's beautiful, it looks lovely. I'd like to see that extended around to other parts of the town. So like, 7th Avenue, East River Road, I think that type of setting is very welcoming. Again, I call it like Village of Anoka. So that I'd love to see that happen. We do have blight, and I'd like to see that addressed. We're not right now attracting middle-class educated families who will own and improve their properties. We are not attracting the outside investment that our residents deserve. We have to go to Coon Rapids or Champlin for groceries. We do not have a Crispin Green, just for an example. But so why is Anoka a city these major businesses avoid? I'd like to see that addressed. Our city is a major waterfront city and one of only a few in the Twin Cities. Yet for some reason, we do not have the type of draw that a Stillwater or a Wayzata would have. So I'd like to see that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Thank you. So first, I'd say just a vibrant local small business community is important. From concerts and events that have been talked about to helping small businesses like local 10K Brewery as an example. That's been a topic that's been a debate of the council. The city really has a unique role in helping the core of the city really be successful. Secondly is having a safe and a welcoming city. I'm going to continue to support police and fire folks like I have been and provide them the resources and training they need. There's two things that's their role, I think, really here is to proactively break down those barriers in the community and also enforce the rule of law. Both are important in keeping us safe. Another one is well-maintained roads, trails, and parks. We do have some wonderful amenities, as Jeff talked about here, but the city really hasn't been keeping up some of those. All you got to do is go around St. Stephen's Church or Franklin School through some of those neighborhoods, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Those roads are in pretty tough shape. We have a lot of natural and historic amenities here, and they should be preserved, and the city should really be a leader in working on those, because once they're gone, they're gone. We should also have a responsive government. I know it's not very exciting sounding, but answering emails, returning phone calls, that should be expected. I've lost count of how many times I've heard from citizens, hey, you're the only council member that's gotten back to me on something. It's our job to listen and to follow up with people, and should be the bare minimum for elected officials. And the last one I have is just being smart and wise with our resources of time and money. For example, one day last fall, I would have preferred our police officers enforcing speeding in the city and not being holed up in City Hall because there was a chalk protest because of a council creating an ordinance that banned chalk in public property. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. I will now ask Candidate Freeburg.
Thank you. I know we're going to be entering into some financial challenges in the future, as we can all attest to what the economy is going to be. And with that, I think we need to cut back on the city budget and do the basics, but be very, very responsible with the taxpayers' money. I'd like to start out with a zero levy, at least as a target goal for the next year coming up, not 2023, but 2024. And I'd like to hire a compliance inspector, as if you've all driven around Anoka this year. For some reason, somehow, they had a Don't Mow in May program, and I think people took that to heart and didn't mow until, September. And it really showed. I drove around the town just looking at properties, and I'm a realtor, and you bring people into a neighborhood, and every other lawn is up to your kneecaps. It's not pretty. So we had one, and he got sidelined, and now he's a building inspector. But we need a compliance inspector. Another goal is to work with the county. We're going to be having a county jail, a new county jail in Anoka that will serve about 600 inmates. And once these inmates are done serving their time, they open up the front door and let them walk out and say goodbye, and don't even give them 50 cents that I know of. And sometimes they end up doing things right out of the jail door. I'd like to work with Alta Recycling to relocate the scrap metal place and abolish parking tickets.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. I will now ask candidates to respond to questions submitted by the public via our website and questions of importance to League of Women Voters. Responses are limited to 1 minute. Candidate Lee, what direct hands-on involvement with the city prepares you for the city council position?
Well, right now I'm on the Economic Development Commission. I've been on that commission for 3 years now, and actually more than 3. I'm in my 4th year on that one now. And that commission, we're all about driving economic activity in the city. We look at it from the perspective of attracting new businesses who may come in here and set up shop in the industrial park or downtown or anywhere, and we look at how we can attract them. So beautifying our amenities, creating a favorable environment to conduct business is the kind of the mission that we have. We make recommendations to the city council. I present them from time to time as far as, what we would like them to, address. It's up to them entirely whether or not they want to or not, but we just have our mission and we do it. We meet once a month, and I love it. I love volunteering for the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Well, I'm on the current council member right now, and prior to that, I was served on the park board for 9 years. And like I said before, I've just been kind of an active city government nerd for 20 years here, just paying attention because I care about the town, I care about the neighborhoods, and I always feel like it's important to be involved. So what that means is that not only do I attend council meetings, but I try to go out and be part of the community at a lot of different events and activities. I try to knock on doors. I try to just communicate wherever people are. And then I try to do other initiatives that are fun. So I get involved with cleaning up the river or helping with Cub Scouts and things like that. And all of that is important because what I feel like it helps me do is it connects with so many different people in different places. And then they know that I'm the guy that they can talk to, and they say, hey, Erik, what about this or what about that? And I think that's really important that as an elected official, I try to connect with people and understand what's going on in their world because I only have a small part of it, and it's an important part, but I feel it's my goal to represent everybody in the city as best I can.
Thank you. Candidate Scott.
Thank you again. Some of the direct involvement I have with the city is I'm the current vice chair of the Park and Rec Board. I'm serving my 2nd term on that role, and I was elected the vice chair during my 1st term, 2nd year, on the Park and Rec Board. That does a lot for the city as far as working hand in hand with other boards like the Economic Development Commission and the City Council to help beautify our city, to make sure our residents have opportunities to get out and enjoy not only our parks and trails, but to see all the parts of Anoka, like our historic downtown, our pool system, to make sure that we train our children to make sure that they learn how to swim. We live in a river town. Other things I do to directly participate with Anoka that would help me with City Council is I attend a lot of the events and get feedback from residents that Anoka puts on. We receive emails periodically from residents about what we're going to do for parks and trails, and we respond accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg.
Well, activities that I've done in the past, being a council member for 24 years, has taught me a lot. I still have a lot to learn. I've served on the fire board as chair and worked with the planning commission to develop new businesses in town. As far as beautification of the city, when I first got into the city council, I dedicated myself to beautify the city. It was my sole goal for running. And that's how you see all the flowers and hanging baskets and the boulevards and improve Main Street and the lights under the bridge and all that. It was a lifelong goal to get Anoka beautified. And I'm very proud of that, and I'd love to get active again and do that.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist, what unique qualifications do you bring to the position of City Council member? What personal traits would make you well-suited for this office?
Well, this is always fun when you have to sit up here and toot your own horn. It's kind of hard for a bunch of Minnesotans to do that, I think. But we got to point out certain stuff. So one of the things to me that I think is important, what I hear from other people is, I say I'm very authentic. I say what I mean, and I'm try to make myself very approachable and relatable to folks in whatever way that is. What that does is it helps me get a better understanding of what folks want, and they're comfortable coming forward to me. And I do that personally. I do that with social media a lot. I try to do that in whatever format works for folks. And I'll get people that will reach out to me and say, hey, I had this issue with this neighbor and the lawns, right, being too long or barking dogs, or hey, I had this issue with staff not being responsive, or whatever the issue, particular one from their perspective is. I always tell people it's unfortunate it was this way, but when I was outside of the council, I'd maybe get 1 out of 10 issues resolved. Now that I'm on the council, it's flip-flopped, and I might get 9 out of 10. So I tell people, you know what, if you're having a concern or whatever, let me know. I'll see what I can do. Sometimes it's just knowing the mechanics of who to talk to and what to do, but I feel that's a really important goal of mine, and I'm going to keep doing it as a council member.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg.
Well, with all the time I've spent on city council in the past, I've grown a relationship with the business people in Anoka. And I've worked with the Chamber of Commerce and ABLA, Anoka Business and Landowners Association. I was president of that at one time. And it's very important to reach out to these business folks because they're the ones that make this town work. And our city staff makes this town work quite well. Without the staff that we have, nothing would really get done. The city council brings ideas to the table, but our staff implements them, and I hope our staff sticks around for quite a long time, because without them, we're going to be in trouble. Lisa Lacoste and John Holmes and these folks, Mark Anderson, and then all the employees, they do a great job, and it's very good to have that communication open with the city manager. Greg Lee does a great job.
Thank you. Candidate Scott,
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
what unique qualifications do you bring to the position of City Council member? What personal traits would make you well-suited for this office?
Thank you. Some of my background in being in the military and my role when I was in the service, I served in Iraq for a tour, and a lot of my job was advising and liaisoning with battle commanders, with government leaders, the mayor of Mosul, the governor of Nineveh province, religious leaders, business leaders. And I learned quite a bit about how their government functioned relative to ours. And that was a big motivation for why, when I came back from overseas, I wanted to make sure I was civically active. Because I found out pretty quickly that if you aren't, you can be subject to, things going awry every now and then. So a lot of my experience over there has helped me to become a better citizen, to respond, understand the importance of responding to residents' concerns and that they're feeling listened to. And that's my primary experience for that piece of it.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I got to go last on this one because I had time to think up my answer. But I'm a commercial banker by profession. That's what I do. And a number of years ago, we took this personality thing on Gallup, and it gives you your top 5 like personality traits on these tests. I don't know how they do it, but they're amazing. And so anyway, my top 5 are positivity, competition, woo, communication, and inclusion. So that's like professional. You can't question that. I mean, that's who I am. There's no, so right there to answer your question. But no, I just can't. And the other thing is, so I love serving, love my volunteer jobs. I love being on the EDC. I served on the board at Lyric Arts for about 3-4 years. This is a while back. I'm involved in the Williams Syndrome Association, and I'm very involved. I've done 2 ride-alongs with the police force. So I'm very much engaged with them to hear what they see from their point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg. What do you believe the path to success involves? How would you promote your strengths and accomplishments?
Well, my strengths and accomplishments have been, I've been a family. I've raised a family for 42 years and got 4 kids and 12 grandchildren. And my parents and grandfather have had a business at Anoka, just behind us on the Rum River where the Veterans Memorial is. And I was a landscape contractor, and now I'm a realtor. And my education in landscaping has, I think, helped the city. I didn't design what the city did, but I encouraged them to do what has been done. And being a real estate agent, I work with people and drive them around the city all the time, and sometimes I hear things I don't want to hear. And that's what drove me to get on the city council decades ago. And it kind of hurts when people have negative comments about your community and you want to fix it. So I think that's a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Scott.
Thank you again. I think some of my ideas around my path to success has been centered around perseverance and serving others. I joined the service when I was 18, spent 8 years in the military, which helped me build my listening skills to make sure that people get, the responses that they're seeking from officials in town. As a business owner as well, it has helped me navigate the climate in town from a business perspective and how easy it is to navigate some red tape in town. And as the vice chair of the Park and Rec department, it's helped me address some of the concerns that residents have and bring some accomplishments to town. For example, we redid Rudy Johnson Park, and that was a huge success for town. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What do you believe the path to success involves? How would you promote your strengths and accomplishments?
Okay, I think a positive attitude is got to be kind of the number one thing here. So you really have to, look at things and say, yes, this can happen. We can do this. We can get there. I think I've been that way my whole life. I've always seen what's best in everyone, and I know, I'll just speak. I think everybody up here on this floor tonight, wants what's best for this city. And if it is me, great. If it's one of you guys, I'm gonna root you on. But I'm just that kind of guy. I cheer everybody on. I think that's a big deal. And so, and as far as accomplishments goes, I've had a number of work accomplishments, things like that. And I think that's, again, positive attitude has led to success in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Thank you. One thing I touched on a little earlier, but just embracing different ideas and perspectives. That's one thing that I've learned is really important. You usually get the best product when enough people have weighed in on something. And then you kind of take that and go from there. And whether that's council, whether that's personal life, whether that's my work life, that's something that I found works out the best. And also taking the time to do what you need to do. Because, you know, we were all younger at some point and had those things. You just want to blow through something and do it quick. And usually it comes to burn you later and you spend more time on it. So I've really found if you just listen to folks, you try to incorporate some of those different ideas, and you try to take the time and energy, you're gonna do positive things. And so for me in Anoka, one of the things I've tried to do is just work with the grain. As we all know, that the city, things have changed through the city and they're continuing to evolve. Let's take the positive from those. Let's try to work together as a group, come to some consensus and move forward, because we're in a lot better shape than a lot of towns, and we just need to be smart about how we move forward. And I think if we're, like you said, being positive and working together, we'll be successful.
Thank you. Candidate Scott, what are the top 2 goals you will work to accomplish if you are elected?
Well, as stated before, when we talked about some of our goals for Anoka's future, one of my top goals is going to be this unique position that Anoka's in for the whole state, is developing this social district downtown, how that's going to impact our traffic, how it's going to impact our businesses and our residents, and just the overall culture of the downtown historic area. It's a lot of history here, and it's going to be a big change. So one of my top goals is to making sure that fits with Anoka's niche in the county and in the metro area. My other piece that I want to make sure that is a top priority, because I do serve on the Park and Rec Commission, and it's something we've been talking about for many years, is getting the west side of the river developed to provide a great space for Anoka to more fully embrace being a river town. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Yeah, so number one would be I want to make sure that some of the properties that we have up for development actually move forward, some of the projects that get talked about. We have a number of properties in the city that sort of are stalled at one spot or another. We have a big property on 7th and Main that the HRA has marketed. We have the restaurant pad, which has been marketed for a number of years. We have the grocery site north of the high school, right on Bunker and 7th right there. And then there's going to be privately owned properties that will come up for redevelopment, especially as Highway 10 is coming together. So there's going to be some very popular things. I'd love to see those get developed into great businesses that are wonderful opportunities for our residents to be in. And then I echo Sam here, is that I would love to see the river get developed. And I think we probably need to work on that dam. It sounds like that dam may be a big problem, and so I believe there's an issue there with potentially even using it as a renewable energy resource. So, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Thank you. Well, 2 is hard, but, you know, we'll whittle it down. But first of all, is I think that's really important, the vibrant downtown. We've all kind of touched on it in various different ways, whether it's beautification or activities or the river. But it's really important, because what I've noticed and what I've seen is that's created spaces that are full. It's created activity and life, and it's created a situation where I live close to downtown. Areas that used to be pretty transient and kind of rough, now it's, you know, I'm one of the oldest people on the block and there's 12 kids. And, you know, it's crazy to see how things have changed. So I think the core to that has really been having a successful downtown and business area, and it just feeds on everything else. The second of all is a little less exciting, but just the bread and butter issues of making sure we have our infrastructure, our roads, trails, parks, everything like that in decent shape. Because there's some spots where, like I said, it's been pretty rough, and we've taken priorities elsewhere. And people that live in their neighborhood, they want to have a decent street. They want to have a park that's nice. And I think that stuff's kind of overlooked for the big, shiny stuff sometimes.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg.
Well, repeating myself, I think that the county jail is a real concern to the citizens. That most of them aren't even aware that there's going to be a new jail downtown. They aren't knowledgeable of what it's going to cost and what your assessment monthly for the next 25 years is going to be. And we have a concern of inmates being let out of jail after they've served their time. And just recently, there was the one that hijacked a car with his leg irons on. That was pretty impressive. The other one would be, and it has to do with putting property back on the tax rolls, but it's where the city has bought all those homes up over in Highland Park area. It's just sitting, waiting for a developer to come in and start building homes and get that back on the tax rolls. So it's hard to just pick two, but those would be two that would be a big concern.
Thank you. Candidate Lee. Many properties in the city of Anoka have visible problems which need to be addressed. As a council member, what steps will you take to enhance the beauty of Anoka? Will there be an increase in housing code enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, I think we, like, Mr. Freeburg had mentioned there was a blight inspector, and I think that we can work together with that individual to make sure that, you know, some of these codes are enforced. Because you're right, it is a problem. And the other thing is, you know, I think if we have blight not only in the neighborhoods, but also on the streets. I mean, in terms of the infrastructure, like Mr. Skogquist talked about. So I do believe that some of our streets need to be invested. And as you beautify those, I think the neighborhoods will come into play from there. And so, yeah, I think we work with the blight inspector, and we encourage redevelopment when necessary, because it is going to be necessary in a lot of places. And we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Well, I think, you know, we've touched on it a little bit, code enforcement is important. You know, we are a reactive city because we don't have the staff to be super proactive. But there's times of the year that works, and there's some times of the year it doesn't. But we need to keep working on that, because as an older city, that's just something you're going to have. One of the things is I work for my regular job. I'm all over the state in different cities. A lot of them are small ones similar to Anoka, but maybe not an Anoka situation. And I've seen examples that they've used for good and for bad. One of the things that I had been harping on since I got elected, and this year was sort of the start of it, was in the city of Coon Rapids, there is a program where basically there's grants and loans and other little things to be able to fix up people's houses, do a curb appeal type of stuff, making it a little easier for people to get into that. This year, we had the CARES grant program, which was wildly successful, where you could apply, you're gonna do $5,000 and something on your house, you might get a $1,000 grant. That's leveraging a lot of capital, and it's making, if you're focusing on stuff that's outward, on the exterior of the home or whatnot, that's been a huge success, and I think we just need to keep using our funds for things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg.
Well, like I said before, we need a compliance inspector. We had one, we lost them. You know, as I drive around the city off of 7th Avenue, I seen one house that had a big trailer about 6 by 10 feet, and they used it for a garbage can, and big black bags of garbage were spewing out over onto the ground where the animals and the raccoons had got into there. And that's just unacceptable. And so when government steps up to the plate and gets involved and gives these homeowners just a little nudge, I mean, you're going to get about 75% that are going to take action and mow the yard or clean up the garbage. The other 25%, they need a little more than a nudge. But it's always nice to just suggest that they mow the yard or pick up the garbage. And with a little encouragement, that'll take place. And with our roads, thanks, Roger.
Thank you. Candidate Scott.
Thank you again. Once again, like I think everybody else kind of agreed on it, enforcement is pretty key in improving property blight around town. You know, make sure we have a carrot and a stick too, that we work with our residents to make sure they're notified of how they're outside of our city guidelines and what potential implications, potentially financial, what those might be if they don't comply with what we have for our rules as a city. Other things that I think would help a lot, and other people mentioned this too, is potentially more active marketing of our housing improvement funds that we have. As Councilmember Skogquist mentioned, the CARES funds has been, I've seen those signs up at houses around town, and I've seen a lot of great improvement on some of those places. And thirdly, a little bit more outside of the box, potentially work with students at STEP. They have an annual build of brand new houses, and they auction them off for fundraising opportunities. Potentially the city could partner with STEP to have those students gain some life skills to help refurbish properties in partnership with the city.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist. How will you deal with the increase in crime and vagrancy in Anoka?
Well, yeah, that's always it's kind of a cyclical issue, but there's plenty of situations. So, we've all kind of seen some of that on Main Street here and there, and I give kudos to our police department who have worked with that to not try to criminalize everything, but to try to use every social service aspect. And some people take that, and some people they won't take the help, and they're comfortable with where they're at in life. So you're going to get that to some extent. But I think being proactive about working with the many programs that are out there, trying to direct people into those, and to try to, Minnesota's a very socially oriented state. We have a lot of opportunities for people to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, you have rules and you have laws and you need to enforce them. And when I've seen our police out there doing that, I've seen them doing it in a very compassionate and reasonable way. I've not heard that from some other places around. And even people, I knock on their door and they've had run-ins. They've said, Anoka police are actually pretty good about this type of stuff when I've had my problems. So I think we just need to keep at it, but we can't let up. We have to be persistent.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg.
Well, Anoka's been blessed with a very strong and efficient police department, and Chief Peterson has done a great job, and chiefs before him also have done a great job. Andy Revering, he was quite a model, but boy, he knew how to build up a police force. We must have had 50-some agents at one time, cops 30 years ago. That was a lot. But good guy and a good chief. Crime is something that if you let your guard down, it'll settle in. And if something's broken, the broken window rule, if the window's broken, fix it. Don't leave it for someone to break another window and another window and think it's okay to have broken windows, because that kind of blight brings in kind of characters you don't want. And so just working with the police force and giving them the tools they need to work with to keep our community safe is vitally important.
Thank you. Candidate Scott.
Thank you. I have a multiple part here for that to help deal with increasing crime in the city. Firstly, partner with county services to make sure that the people who have been infracting on our city ordinances can be directed to the resources they might need for certain infractions to help reduce recidivism and to make sure that we do our best as a city to try to prevent what we can where that is involved. Secondly, and that goes hand in hand, is to make sure that they're aware of and giving them a leg up to direct them to opportunities for job training skills, to make sure that if you're, don't have an opportunity to get a job and be a productive member of society, you have options available. Thirdly, have enough officers with the tools they need to enforce the laws, as recommended potentially by Chief Peterson. And thirdly, something I learned when I was overseas too, is to make sure that there's a solid relationship between the police and the residents, as well as amongst the residents themselves at community events. Knowing your neighbor does a lot, and knowing your neighborhood does a lot to prevent crime in the neighborhoods too. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Yeah, I think the first thing you got to do is actually go and ride along with the police officers and see what they're seeing. And I would encourage anybody here that if they get on the council, definitely do that. You want to see what's going on our streets, see what's going on at 2 a.m., because you'd be shocked. The night that I went out there, we had 3 sworn officers on duty, and thankfully, there was not a domestic incident at the time that the bars were closing. Our bars are hugely popular now around the Twin Cities. People do not feel safe going to downtown Minneapolis anymore, so they're coming here, and it's been a boom for them, which is great. And we have a lot of good activity at the bars, and that's great. We want that, but it does add a strain on our police force. And so thankfully we didn't have a domestic that night, so we were able to kind of see and monitor and make sure the bars closed effectively. But that's just something we have to do. You have to stay engaged, work with the police, go out there, go on the street and see what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg. Traffic diversion has increased the volume and noise of traffic in residential neighborhoods, causing a disruption for families at all hours. What will you do as a member of the City Council to regulate the large amount of traffic diverted through residential areas and increase the comfort of residents?
Can I pass on that one? Traffic. It's always going to be with us, and road construction is always going to be with us. And people will find an easier way to divert and get around the construction. And if you put a cop on every back street of Park Street and what have you, on Ferry Street, nothing would get resolved, I don't feel. It's just part of life. And I think our city does as good a job as they can to get the traffic to flow, but there always will be residual flowing into the neighborhoods. And all you can do is, if there is a problem, our police will park there, monitor it. If there's a speeding problem, they'll bring in that meter and advise people that they're speeding. I mean, we've got tools to work with, but there is not a good answer to traffic problems, unless you guys got one.
Thank you. Candidate Scott.
Yeah, to just expound and echo Mr. Freeburg's statements there, we live in a popular town, and we have a lot of great events that I think other towns might be jealous of. We attract a lot of people for Anoka Halloween, for the Food Truck Festival, and, you know, whether we like it or not, there is road construction on Highway 10, and that's going to be with us for another year or two. With that comes people driving around trying to figure out alternative paths to get to their final destination. If there's going to be any kind of remediation at all, I think what the city has done and perhaps could do better, I'm not entirely certain because in my neighborhood we don't have that issue. It's just making sure that there's signage that's easily viewable by people driving through town who are trying to find a shortcut around. But like Mark said before, population of Andover and Ramsey is just booming, and we're going to have more and more traffic coming through down to the cities where they work and back home where they live. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Yeah, I mean, we have 3 different bottlenecks in this town, and one of them is under complete construction. So I think it's a tough answer. I mean, you can't get over. You got the train tracks on 47, which backs up forever, and then you've got the Rum River with its bridges, and we got one crossing on the Mississippi River. So yeah, to your point, 169 goes right through here, and so does Highway 10. How do we do that? It's a good question. You know, I think a number of years back, when I was a kid, I remember there was a noise ordinance for certain times of the evening where there was like I don't know if it's called jack braking or whatever. There was you couldn't do that, and then you could, if you went back in the cruising days. But anyway, so maybe you could look into something like that, and keeping it so that it's not during, midnight. But I understand the challenges our neighborhoods are feeling. Hopefully when these roads are done, that's a big improvement. Maybe we could look at the light timing too. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Thank you. Yeah, right now it's extra fun, as we've all heard and seen, and that's one of the many calls I get lots is regarding traffic through one spot or another. But it's important because there are, I've been sitting there where I'm talking to somebody and somebody cruises through a stop sign because they're trying to go home quick and whatnot, and it's not safe either. I remember as a kid somebody dying on a street corner near me because they blew through a stop sign and they hit the kids. Those are real issues, and it comes down to, you try to do as much mechanical stuff as you can. Years ago, they stopped Park Street from being a cut-through road. There's a dead end. You can do that in some areas. You can't do that in all. But really, it comes down to it. The rules are enforced by officers out there. And as we've gotten more and more calls, we've had less time to be proactive and have an officer just sit there. So we've added in the budget, and I heard next year we're going to have somebody, we're going to be able to actually have somebody do that a lot more proactively. And all I have to say is drive through Champlin. You don't need an officer there every time, but if you do it consistently enough, you're going to slow down or you're going to get a ticket. And I think there's spots in Anoka we need to definitely remind people of that as well.
Thank you. Candidate Scott. To strengthen our city's resilience to unpredictable climate changes, what initiatives do you propose, or what current initiatives do you want to expand?
Well, we talked briefly about it. It was mentioned earlier. that there's been some discussion to look at potentially hydroelectric power coming from our dam. The Anoka Municipal Utility is expanding currently and into the future for renewable energy sources such as wind and solar. And there's going to be a big transition, it seems to me, where the trends are going, is to have more and more electric vehicles, whether they're cars or I've seen a lot of scooters around, lots of alternative vehicles, which should help with reducing our CO2 emissions as a city. And another thing we could definitely promote, maybe through public education or through some city development, is promoting Anoka's convenience, which is a big reason why I moved here from Andover, is it's a very bikeable and walkable city. And making sure there's enough bike racks for people to have opportunities to bike around town, have sidewalks that connect vital parts of the town is important to meet those goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lee.
Can you repeat the question, please?
To strengthen our city's resilience to unpredictable climate changes, what initiatives do you propose, or what current initiatives do you want to expand?
Okay. Well, I think we talked about the dam. It'd be nice to get something there that, if you can find renewable sources of energy, that's great. And I'm a big fan of the river cleanup events. We engage in those ourselves too, and I think that's something that we can all continue to do. I don't want to put extra limits on people for getting, as cheap as possible of energy, reliable energy. So I wouldn't be in favor of anything like that where you restrain anything. But I think Anoka is at the head of the curve. I know the state places limits on our power utility, and Anoka, I believe, is actually ahead of the curve on that. So we do a pretty good job in what we do, and I think we can continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Yeah, the biggest part of it is we obviously our own electric utility, as this has been mentioned. So, yeah, one of the things is that's kind of one of the committees I've been very involved with. And so right now, just this year, we have another project the city works with, and we can, work with 12 other cities to do big, large-scale projects. We just broke ground on a new renewable wind project, and we're going to be from about 20% to over 40% renewable just off the top. But it really comes down to it just being smart about making things walkable, bikeable. Make sure we have paths in place, we stripe areas, just simple things where people, I try to walk around as much as I can so I'm not burning gas, one, because it's expensive, but, it's just another little way I can try to do that. And there's a lot of people in the city that feel that way. So I think it's the city's job, necessarily, like you said, not to force, but to put people in a position where it's convenient and easy for them to go about and make those choices for themselves. And in the end, I think it's going to be a positive little impact. Little old Anoka will have an impact. If everybody else works that way, I think we can make a difference.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg.
Well, again, being it has been mentioned that we own a electric utility company, I think that some of the employees' vehicles, especially the electrical department, should have an electric car. I don't think it's going to save the planet, but I think it sends a message that we're trying to be good stewards. And, with the hydroelectric generator down here behind us on the dam, if it's going to be financially profitable or break even, I'll be open to listening to that. But if it's so costly it doesn't make sense, but we do it just to save the planet, I'm not going to be in favor of it. And I think if one thing we could do would be to talk to President Xi of China and have him quit building coal plants every week. That would do a lot more for Anoka than anything we can do.
I don't speak
Thank you.
Chinese, sorry.
Candidates will now have 1 minute each for a closing statement. Candidate Lee.
Oh, thank you. Let's see, I had something prepared for that. So I want to thank everybody for being here and appreciate all my opponents showing up tonight. And this was a fun debate. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing this thing, and we had a good time. So, I just want to focus on, I'll have a firm support of law enforcement, and I really want to pay attention to the levy and the different ways we can fund certain things. We have a lot of ways we drive revenue in this city that are unique, and they keep our taxes low in comparison to some of the other cities near us. I know if we compare our taxes to people across the river in Hennepin County, we have a lot better situation here in Anoka, and I'd like it to stay that way. It's because of the liquor stores, it's because of the municipal utility and the things we get creative on. So I'd like to continue to do that, and I think everybody here wants to support Anoka. Everybody wants what's best. We might disagree on how to get there, but we all have the desire to raise the quality of life here. I share that. I want this town to be awesome, and it has so much potential, and I really just see that. I think we could do more. We've done a ton in the 20 years, or I'd say in the past 20 years or so, in terms of developing downtown in those areas. But I just think we have a lot of work we can do, and I hope to help see that through. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Skogquist.
Well, thank you again, League, for putting this on. It's one of the things you always hear out there is it's really hard to find out stuff about local candidates unless you put it out yourself. And then it's just, of course, propaganda, right? But it's important that we really engage with the community. And I like I said, I appreciate the League doing this. And as a leader in the city here, I really like to, I've stated this a lot, but I think it's important is to listen and to respond to citizens and what they want. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything that somebody comes forward to me with, but to know that they've been heard and they've been valued goes a long way. I think that's been, like I said, I think that's been lacking at the city of Anoka for a while, and I think it could use a little bit of a fresh perspective to be able to do that. So I'm hoping, with this open seat that's here, we get some folks on here that want to roll up their sleeves and just, do something and be a little bit more energetic. So Anoka is an amazing city, and that's why I continue to live here. That's why I continue to invest in this city, and I'm going to be here for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Freeburg.
Well, thank you, and thank you, League, for having this forum for us. I appreciate the effort. It's a lot of work you put into this. It's an old cliche, but I was born on Ferry Street. My grandparents and my parent had a business on Jackson Street, which is gone now. It was next to Serum's parking lot. I've raised my family here, had a business here, plan to retire here, and I love this town. When I first got on the city council, I said, if the government steps forward and does their job, the business community and homeowners will follow. And if you walk downtown Anoka and walk on Main Street and see how Jensen's have beautified all their buildings, and all the other property owners, how they've beautified with new brick, and they've taken off the rough sawn cedar and the aluminum siding and exposed the beauty of the rock and the brick. And that's what I'm all about, is trying to protect your homeowners' values by creating a city that is, Anoka truly is a destination city. And I'm disappointed a little bit about folks criticizing our roads, because you can only do so many roads at one time because it's very expensive, but we're on a 70-year cycle to replace all our infrastructure and roads, and we started that about 25 years ago. It's a huge success and it's a huge expense. But I just enjoy working and serving the public. Thank you.
Candidate Scott.
Thank you, and I want to echo everyone else's statements, thanking the League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight. You guys do a great job. Once again, my name is Sam Scott, and I'm running for City Council and asking for your vote this fall. For those that don't know me, I've lived in the Anoka area for most of my life. I married my high school sweetheart, Crystal, who's a former Anoka ambassador and a teacher in the district here in Anoka. I have two amazing children, both we adopted from foster care. I'm the vice chair of the Parks and Recreation Board, an Anoka High School graduate, and I have my degree in finance and MBA from the University of Minnesota. Finally, I'm also a proud Army combat veteran and know firsthand the stress and professionalism it takes for our police and fire departments to do their job well and keep crime low. Anoka needs a change in its leadership. I want to re-legalize sidewalk chalk, facilitate the growth of our local businesses, and adequately fund our police, fire, and other city services like the Parks and Rec Department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. League of Women Voters thanks the candidates for speaking to the voters about the issues and for running for Anoka City Council. Thanks to our viewers for your interest in becoming informed voters. As we move through the election season, links to all our local forums are located at lwv.qctv.tv. abcmn.org, as well as the QCTV website and YouTube. If you need to register to vote or update your registration, you can do that online at mnvotes.org or when you go to vote. If you are interested in League of Women Voters, visit our website at lwvabcmn.org. Women and men age 18 and older are welcome to join. Remember, the general election is November 8th. Early voting starts September 23rd and will continue through November 7th. Anoka residents can vote early at Anoka City Hall or Anoka County Elections Office. You can find information on voting options or find your polling place on the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. Our democracy depends on citizen involvement. Make your voice heard in the general election by voting on or before November 8th. Your vote is your voice. Thank you.